You wake up one morning and something feels off. There's a heaviness in your chest, a silence that goes beyond your room. It's in your soul. No messages, no calls. Not even a "how are you" from someone you hoped would care. It's in that moment, when the world feels cold and distant, that a voice inside whispers something painful. Maybe I'm just not lovable. But let me ask you something. Where does that voice come from? Is it really yours, or did you inherit it, absorb it, somewhere along the way? You see, most of us are carrying emotions that don't even belong to us. They were handed to us quietly, unconsciously, by parents who were too broken to show love the way we needed it, by friends who abandon us at our most vulnerable, by society that told us we're only worthy when we're perfect, productive, or pleasing to others. That quiet voice that tells you you're unlovable, that didn't come from the core of who you are. It came from wounds, from disappointments you never processed, from pain you tucked away so you could keep going. We like to believe we're in control of our choices, our emotions, our sense of self, but until we pause and look inward, much of our pain continues to operate in the shadows. That's why understanding where this deep feeling of being unloved originates is the first step toward healing. It's not about blaming others. It's about becoming conscious of the emotional programming that's been running silently in the background of your life. When you were a child, maybe you reached for love in the form of attention, only to be met with silence. Maybe you cried and were told to stop being sensitive. Maybe you were punished for expressing your needs, so you learned to stop expressing them. Over time, the message became clear. You don't matter unless you're doing something to earn love. So now, as an adult, you repeat that pattern. You give and give and give, hoping someone will finally see you, appreciate you, love you. And when they don't, that same old voice returns. See, you're not enough. But what if I told you that voice isn't truth? It's memory. It's the echo of moments when love was withheld, not because you were unworthy, but because the people around you didn't know how to love, not deeply, not unconditionally. You've internalized rejection. That's why you question your worth when someone leaves. That's why you shrink yourself to keep the peace. That's why silence from others feels like confirmation that you are unlovable. But none of that is actually about you. It's about the emotional map you were handed without ever realizing it. And here's the difficult part. Most people avoid this kind of self-exploration. They'd rather keep chasing love outside of themselves than sit quietly and listen to what's happening inside. Why? Because looking within means facing discomfort. It means remembering the times you felt small, forgotten, invisible. But it also means freeing yourself from them. Because when you begin to understand where these feelings come from, something powerful happens. You stop fighting yourself. You stop trying to earn love by being perfect. You stop making other people's opinions the measure of your worth. Instead, you start asking different questions. What part of me still believes I'm unworthy? What am I carrying that doesn't belong to me? When did I first feel this kind of pain? And as you ask these questions, something shifts. You begin to see yourself with more clarity, not as broken or needy, but as someone who adapted in order to survive. And those adaptations? They were intelligent. They were your body and mind trying to protect you. But now, you're safe. You don't need to perform for love anymore. You just need to return to yourself. When no one else loves you, it doesn't mean you are unlovable. It means the people you needed love from were not capable of offering it in the way you deserved. It's a reflection of their limitations, not your value. And once you understand that, once you really understand that, you'll stop begging for crumbs and start building a feast within. It doesn't happen overnight. Healing is not a straight line. There will be days when the silence is louder than ever, when the loneliness feels unbearable, when the past knocks on your door and you're tempted to believe it all over again, that you're not enough. But in those moments, pause, take a breath, and remember, this feeling is not who you are. It's a signal, a message from within, calling you back to your truth. Because beneath the pain, beneath the history, beneath the noise, you were never unlovable. You were only unheard, unseen, unmet. And now, you're learning to see yourself. You carry a version of yourself that you've never shown anyone. The part that feels too messy, too emotional, too angry, too needy, too much. You hide it because somewhere along the way, you were taught that to be loved, you had to be agreeable, pleasant, easy to deal with. You had to be less of yourself to be accepted by others, and so you learned to silence those pieces, to bury them deep where no one could see. But here's the truth. The parts of you that you've locked away, they're not your enemies. They are, in fact, the doorway to your healing. There is a part of the human psyche that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It's what many call the shadow, the unspoken, unacknowledged part of ourselves that we've disowned in order to fit in, to feel safe, to be loved. But what we repress doesn't disappear. It grows, it waits, it leaks out in ways we don't expect. In our reactions, our self-sabotage, our constant need for approval, and in the quiet feeling that something's always missing. When you feel unloved, when you feel like no one truly sees you, it's often not because you're invisible. It's because you've become invisible to yourself. You've denied your shadow, your anger, your grief, your insecurity, your jealousy, your fear. And in doing so, you've split yourself into fragments. You've said, these parts of me are okay to show. These parts must be hidden. And yet love, real love, cannot reach a divided self. If you only allow love to touch the curated version of you, the mask, then you will always feel unloved beneath it, because that love isn't reaching the real you. So what do? You stop running from the shadow, you turn toward it, you sit with it, you allow yourself to meet the version of you that you've avoided for so long. And in that meeting, you begin the process of becoming whole again. This is not an easy journey. It's not glamorous. It won't always feel empowering. Sometimes it feels like unraveling. But in the unraveling, you find the threads of your truth. You begin to see that the things you thought made you unlovable, your sensitivity, your sadness, your rage, they're not flaws, they're signals, indicators of wounds that never got the chance to heal. And the only way those wounds begin to heal is when you stop pretending they don't exist. You may be surprised by what you find when you step into your shadow. You may realize that the anger you've been afraid of holds your strength, that the sadness you've buried is a doorway to deeper empathy, that your insecurity is just a younger version of you still waiting for reassurance. These parts of you don't need to be silenced, they need to be acknowledged, embraced, integrated. Integration means allowing all parts of yourself to coexist. It means saying, yes, I can feel doubt and still believe in myself. I can carry pain and still be worthy of joy. I can be imperfect and still deserve love. This is the essence of self-love, not perfection, but wholeness. Not approval from others, but acceptance from within. There is immense power in facing yourself completely. When you stop hiding from your truth, you stop fearing rejection. Because you no longer live for someone else's version of love, you begin to live in alignment with your own. And when someone does come along who sees you, really sees you, you'll know they're not loving the mask, they're loving you. All of you, including the parts you once believed were too dark to deserve light. This is why you must do the work. This is why you must look within. Because until you embrace your shadow, you will continue to chase love in places that demand your silence. You will continue to repeat patterns with people who only love the fragments of you that reflect their comfort. But once you begin to love your shadow, you change the game. You stop settling, you stop shrinking, you stop apologizing for being a full, complex human being. You become dangerous in the best way, not to others, but to the systems that once convinced you to stay small. You become free. And freedom is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of self. The ability to walk through life knowing you are whole, even when no one else can see it. The ability to sit with your own pain without judgment. The ability to say, I may not be loved by everyone, but I love me, and that is enough. So when you feel unloved, I want you to remember this. Maybe what's missing is not someone else's love. Maybe what's missing is your own permission to be fully seen by you. You've been looking for love in the eyes of others for so long that you've forgotten what your own gaze feels like. Every compliment, every like, every response, it gives you a temporary high, a sense of being seen, a moment where you feel like you matter. But when it fades, and it always does, you're left wondering why the emptiness always returns. Why no amount of attention seems to truly fill you. That's because love that comes from the outside can only touch the surface. It's like sunlight on your skin. Warm, beautiful, but not enough to light you up from within. You've been conditioned to believe that love equals approval, that your worth is measured by how much others need you, want you, praise you. It starts early. Maybe it was the teacher who only paid attention when you got things right, or the parent who was proud of you only when you behaved a certain way. Or maybe it was friends who drifted away when you stopped giving more than you received, so you learned, not directly, but deeply, that love is a transaction, that to be valued, you must offer something first. But let me ask you this, what happens when you stop offering, when you're tired, when you have nothing left to give? Do you still feel worthy of love then? For most people the answer is no. Because they've tied their self-worth to usefulness, to perfection, to constant performance. And that's exactly where the pain begins. Because now every mistake feels like a threat. Every moment of rest feels like laziness. Every time someone pulls away, you take it personally, as if their behavior is proof that you are not enough. But it's not. Their silence is not your unworthiness. Their rejection is not your reflection. The moment you start measuring your value by what others give or don't give, you give away your power. You become dependent, fragile, easily broken. This is why you must learn to detach your worth from external validation. Not because other people don't matter, but because your peace shouldn't be at the mercy of their approval. Real self-love begins the moment you stop asking others to tell you who you are. You see, when you constantly seek validation from others, you give them the power to define your value. But most people aren't even aware of their own value, let alone capable of recognizing yours. So you end up stuck, shaping yourself to fit their needs, fearing rejection, chasing moments of affection that never last. And all the while, the part of you that longs for true connection is left starving. It's easy to get caught in the loop. You post something and wait for likes. You wear something new and look around for compliments. You say something kind and hope for recognition. It's not wrong to enjoy praise. That's human. But when it becomes your oxygen, you're no longer breathing on your own. So how do you begin to break free? You start by remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. You strip away the need to impress, to perform, to prove. You sit with yourself in silence, no filters, no distractions, and ask the questions that scare you. Who am I when no one is watching? Can I still love myself when no one else is clapping? In that quiet space, you'll begin to hear your own voice again. It may sound unfamiliar at first. It may speak with doubt or hesitancy, but over time it gets clearer, louder, stronger. That voice is your true self, not shaped by applause but rooted in truth. It reminds you that your worth isn't negotiable. It was never up for debate. It was always there, waiting to be seen by the one person who matters most, you. And once you start to see yourself clearly, you stop tolerating what no longer serves you. You stop shrinking to fit into places that were never meant for your spirit. You stop chasing those who overlook your soul, because you finally understand your value is not determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. This doesn't mean you become cold or closed off. In fact, quite the opposite. When you love yourself from within, you become more open, more present, more loving, but not because you need anything in return. You give from overflow, not from lack. You share your light without dimming it for others to feel comfortable. You speak truth without fear of losing love, because the most important love, your own, is already rooted deep inside. This shift doesn't happen all at once. Some days you'll still crave the old patterns. You'll still hope for someone's praise, someone's response. That's okay, but now you'll catch yourself. You'll pause, you'll breathe, and in that moment, you'll remind yourself, I don't need their permission to be enough, because you are already whole, not because someone said so, not because you earned it, but because you exist, and that is enough. There's a quiet strength in choosing to be kind to yourself, especially on the days when you feel like you don't deserve it. It's easy to love yourself when everything is going well, when people are responding, when you're achieving, when your reflection smiles back at you with confidence. But the real test comes when everything is still, when no one is clapping, and when that inner voice starts whispering old, familiar lies. That's when you must lean into something deeper than self-esteem or momentary positivity. You must lean into self-compassion. Most people misunderstand self-love. They think it's about pampering or pretending everything is okay. But true love for yourself isn't a performance. It's not about denying your flaws or ignoring your pain. It's about showing up for yourself fully, especially when you're messy, overwhelmed, or lost. That's what compassion is. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present with your imperfections and not abandoning yourself when you're at your worst. Think of how you would comfort a child who is crying, not by telling them to toughen up or by shaming them for being too sensitive. You'd kneel down, look them in the eye and say, "It's okay. I'm here. You're safe." But when it's you who's hurting, when it's you who's scared or spiraling or aching, you speak with judgment instead. "What's wrong with you? Why are you like this? You're too emotional." That's not love. That's self-abandonment disguised as discipline. The truth is, you've probably been harder on yourself than anyone else ever has. You've carried expectations that were never meant for you. You've punished yourself for not being what others wanted, and when that hurt stacked too high, you buried it deep. But buried pain doesn't disappear. It grows. It creates shame. And shame convinces you that you're not worthy of care until you've fixed everything that's broken inside you. But that's the trap. You don't heal so that you become worthy of love. You love yourself so that you can heal. Compassion is not the reward at the end of your journey, it's the beginning of it. And it starts in the smallest ways. It starts when you forgive yourself for something you still carry, when you stop replaying moments you wish you could erase, when you allow yourself to rest even when your mind tells you you haven't done enough. It starts when you change how you talk to yourself in moments of doubt, when you whisper, "I'm still with you," instead of, "I'm so tired of you." You are not your worst day. You are not your worst mistake. You are not the version of yourself that others failed to love. You are a whole being, shaped by experiences, yes, but not defined by them. And inside you is someone who has tried, who has endured, who has bent but not broken. That version of you deserves kindness. That version of you is waiting to be met with grace, not judgment. Self-compassion is not weakness. It is the foundation of strength. Because when you know how to hold yourself in your lowest moments, you become unshakable. The world can be cruel, people can leave, storms can come, But if you've built a home inside yourself, you'll never be truly lost. You may think that being hard on yourself keeps you motivated, that it drives you forward. But punishment is not the same as purpose. Fear is not the same as discipline. When you move from compassion, your choices come from love, not lack. You start taking care of your body not because you hate it, but because you honor it. You start setting boundaries not because you fear being hurt, but because you respect your peace. And even in relationships, everything changes. You stop begging others to fill your empty places. You stop chasing love that makes you shrink, because you already know how to be there for yourself. You already know what you deserve. You've practiced it. You've lived it. Self-compassion is a quiet revolution. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to be loud. It shows up in the small, brave choices you make every day. Choosing rest over burnout. Choosing truth over silence. Choosing gentleness over shame. Choosing to say, I am enough. Not because everything is perfect, but because perfection was never the goal. And yes, there will still be days when that old voice returns, the one that tells you you're too much or not enough. But now you'll recognize it. You'll know that voice isn't truth, it's memory. You'll smile at it, breathe and return to your practice, your kindness, your compassion. You don't need anyone's permission to treat yourself like someone who matters. That decision is yours, and once you make it, truly make it, the world around you begins to shift, because you have shifted. You don't become lovable after you change. You become free the moment you stop waiting to be fixed and start choosing to love yourself as you are, right here, right now. There's a strange stillness in solitude that most people try to avoid. When the noise fades, the texts stop coming, the room is quiet, no one's asking anything from you, it can feel almost unbearable. Because suddenly you're alone with yourself, and if you've spent most of your life attaching your worth to the presence or approval of others, that silence can feel threatening. But it's in that very silence, in that uncomfortable pause, that something sacred begins to happen. You start hearing yourself again. Many people confuse loneliness with failure, as if being alone means something is wrong with them. That if you're not surrounded by people or constantly engaged, then maybe you're not enough. But that's not true. The truth is, solitude isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. It's a rare moment when the world steps back and you have the space to meet yourself, without the noise of expectations, without the pressure to perform, without anyone else's opinions drowning out your own voice. When no one else is around, your thoughts get louder. The old fears start to surface. The memories you haven't processed start knocking. And yes, it can be overwhelming, but it's not because you're weak. It's because you're finally beginning to confront the parts of yourself you've been running from. That's what solitude gives you. The chance to stop running. You may think you already know yourself, but most of the time, what we know is the version of ourselves we've created for others. The version that's easy to like, easy to understand, easy to accept. But beneath that version is someone far more real. Someone who has been waiting to be heard, not judged. Someone who has learned to stay quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they weren't sure if anyone would listen. You can be the one who listens. You don't need an audience to validate your feelings. You don't need someone to witness every moment of your life to prove that it matters. In solitude, you begin to understand that your experience is valuable simply because it's yours. Your thoughts, your feelings, your breath. They carry meaning, even if no one else sees them. But solitude doesn't just teach you about yourself, it teaches you how to hold space for yourself. It shows you where you've been relying on distractions to avoid your pain. It reveals the habits you've used to escape your own company, and slowly, with time and intention, it gives you a new kind of strength. Not the loud, visible kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that comes from knowing you can sit with yourself, through anything. When you stop filling every quiet moment with noise, with scrolling, with background chatter, with unnecessary busyness, you give yourself the opportunity to reflect. And in that reflection, you begin to see not only who you are, but who you're becoming. You realize that being alone doesn't make you less lovable, it makes you more available for truth, for growth, for the kind of healing that doesn't depend on anyone else. There's a moment in solitude when you shift from feeling abandoned to feeling free, from being unseen to being deeply known by yourself, and that moment is powerful. Because when you no longer fear being alone, you stop settling. You stop chasing people who don't see you. You stop bending yourself into versions that don't feel true. You realize that love is not just something you receive, it's something you become. It's not that you won't want connection anymore. You will. Human beings are wired for it. But you'll want it differently. You'll want connection that aligns, not connection that distracts. You'll seek relationships that reflect your growth, not relationships that reward your silence. And most importantly, you'll no longer fear losing people who don't value you, because you've learned how to be there for yourself. Solitude teaches you to trust your own presence, to sit in discomfort without needing to escape, to grieve, to laugh, to dream, all without waiting for someone else to give you permission. It reminds you that you are your own home, that everything you were seeking in someone else, comfort, acceptance, reassurance, you can give to yourself. It may not feel natural at first. It may feel like pretending, but with each act of showing up for yourself, it becomes more real, more rooted, more yours. There's a quiet kind of love that grows in solitude, the kind that doesn't ask to be proven or performed, the kind that says, even if no one else shows up today, I will. That's the kind of love that sustains you, that carries you when the world feels distant, that steadies you when everything else is shifting. So if you find yourself in a season of being alone, don't rush to escape it. Don't fill the silence out of fear. Sit in it. Let it teach you. Let it strip away everything that isn't really you, because on the other side of that silence is clarity. There's peace. There's resilience. There's the kind of self-love that doesn't disappear when others do. It's easy to believe that healing is about becoming someone else, someone stronger, someone braver, someone who doesn't hurt anymore. But the truth is, healing isn't about transformation, it's about remembrance. It's about returning to what has always been inside you but was buried beneath pain, fear, and survival. You're not broken. You're not missing something essential. You're simply covered in layers of what life has thrown at you. And the journey is not about finding something new, it's about coming home to yourself. So many people spend their lives trying to become enough. They chase after approval, accomplishments, relationships, as if each one will finally fill the space inside them that feels empty. But wholeness isn't something you achieve through external means. It's something you recognize, something you reconnect with, because you were never incomplete to begin with. That feeling of brokenness, of not being enough, was never about who you are. It was about what you've been through, about how the world responded when you showed your most vulnerable self, about how often your light was misunderstood or worse, dismissed. When you were a child, you didn't worry about being too much or not enough. You didn't measure your worth by how productive you were or how liked you were. You just existed, fully, freely, curiously. You cried when you needed to cry, you laughed without apology, and you reached out without fear of rejection. That was your natural state. That was wholeness. Then the world came in and started giving you conditions. Be quieter, be tougher, be better. So you learned to hide pieces of yourself to be accepted. You split your soul into fragments to fit into places that never truly saw you. But what if you don't need to be fixed? What if all you need is to return, to reclaim the parts of you that were pushed away, the sensitivity, the wildness, the wonder, the softness, not to become someone else, but to fully become yourself again. This is the work of inner integration, not erasing your past, not pretending the pain didn't happen, but weaving it all together, making peace with your shadows, holding your wounds with tenderness, taking back the pieces of yourself you left behind in order to be loved. That's how you return to your essence. And yes, that process is difficult. It requires honesty. You have to face the stories you've told yourself, the ones that say you're not worthy, that you're too flawed, that you're beyond repair. You have to challenge those narratives, not by fighting them, but by gently asking, who gave you that story? And why did I believe it? You begin to rewrite it, not with loud declarations, but with consistent choices. Every time you choose to rest instead of push, every time you speak up instead of stay silent, every time you forgive yourself instead of punish yourself. These are not small things. These are revolutionary acts of self-remembrance. And when you start seeing yourself clearly, all of yourself, you realize you don't need to wait for others to love you fully before you can feel whole. Their love can be beautiful, yes, but it's no longer your oxygen. It's no longer the only thing keeping you going, because you've learned to love yourself in the most important way, without condition. You see, many people wait for healing to come from outside, from a relationship, a success, a moment of clarity. But healing is not something you wait for, it's something you choose. It's a decision to be with yourself in every phase, not just when you're shining, but also when you're stumbling, especially when you're stumbling. The more you return to yourself, the less you feel the need to chase. You stop looking for love in places that hurt. You stop needing validation from people who don't even know who they are. You stop pretending to be someone else just to belong. Because you already belong to yourself. And in that space of inner belonging, something softens. The pressure to be perfect lifts. The shame that's weighed you down for years begins to dissolve. And in its place grows compassion. Real compassion. Not the kind that overlooks your flaws, but the kind that embraces them as part of your beauty. You begin to live differently. You walk slower, you breathe deeper, you listen more, not just to others, but to the voice inside you that used to be drowned out. You stop rushing to prove something. You start trusting that just by being, by existing, by showing up, you are enough. That is wholeness. It's not about never hurting again. It's about knowing that even when you hurt, you are still worthy, still valuable, still complete. The pain may shape you, but it doesn't define you. The past may influence you, but it doesn't limit you. You are not your worst moment. You are the one who lived through it. So this journey, this returning, isn't about fixing anything. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about gathering your pieces and saying, I welcome you back. I see you now. You belong here. You've spent so much of your life trying to be enough for everyone else, shrinking yourself to fit into boxes you were never meant to occupy, quieting your voice just to keep the peace, and chasing love that made you forget your own worth. But now it's time to return to yourself, to remember that you were never made to be small. You were never made to beg for love that costs you your peace. You are not here to become someone else just to be accepted. You are here to become whole, not perfect, but real. And that starts when you stop running from your pain, your silence, your story. When you stand still, look in the mirror and say, I am enough, even when no one claps. I am worthy, even when no one stays. And I choose to love myself fully, fiercely, relentlessly, because I deserve to come home to me. Thank you.